Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Jazz and Popular Music 101. I am pure Professor P.D. Rave. Why don't we have attendance? Brett?
Present. I brought my pencil.
Drew?
Here.
Patrick?
Here.
Warren? Warren? Oh, there you are. Warren, what did we tell you about invading other people's personal space? Come on. You gotta know a little bit better than that. All right.
You can't block him. He's
you can't block
unblockable,
him. He's unblockable. Of course, we're here for class, presenting some music for us for the class today. Brett, what do you have for the classroom today?
Well, we're gonna watch an episode of Barney. No, I brought Barney Kessel's the album from mid '50s, where he asked the question to swing or not to swing, comma, Volume 3.
Yes, Volume 3. Patrick, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I figured there'd be some exploration of swinging and possibly also not swinging. Beyond that, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I am not what one would call a jazz head. I am a person who occasionally enjoys these genre. So I figured, Brett said it was a jazz record, and
Trigger warning.
Being Brett, it might be guitar centric.
Yes. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, Brett said it was something, I believe he said his mother listened to a lot.
No, it's not something.
Or before his mother.
Yes, it's as old as my mother is.
Okay.
As old as you, correct. I knew it was something about your mother. And not the usual terrible jokes we make about each other's mothers. No. Something actually about his mother. So I knew it was going to be something that maybe I hadn't heard before. So I was prepared for that, prepared for maybe a different sound as far as the tone and fidelity of the record went, but he also gave us hints that it was jazzy, and by the title of it, I was guessing it was going to be some swing jazz played in there. Don't know why I would think something like that. Maybe we'll go into it.
We'll see. Well, you never know. Brett, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes elements that make up this record?
Well, for one, it's kind of a hodgepodge. As the name says, it doesn't follow one style of music all the way through. Barney's pretty well known for his work with other guitarists, like Herb Ellis. This isn't one of those albums. This is one where he's also known for doing a lot of work with standards, which is the form of jazz I tend to stick to. I really like when people take a song that's been played before and play it again, but do it differently. This is an album that was kind of before his peak in popularity, but he'd already worked in a couple. He'd been a professional musician since he was 14, but this was before he peaked in his popularity, and definitely before his evenings with Barney TV show specials. There's a thing with the tone of his playing that you can sort of attribute to his equipment. He mainly played a Gibson ES350 with a Charlie Christian pickup that had a very, very weird low tone to it. It was very fat sounding for an electric guitar of that time, where a lot of people were playing other kind of like L5s and L4s that sounded a little differently. This is very much if you can find an old Charlie Christian recording that is of any fidelity you can listen to, you can see some similarities, I've been told, but that's like listening to a wax cylinder. So it's not very, the fidelity is not there for me to really understand. But there's a lot of, with the guitar playing, there's some very, very neat sweep picking, some neat inversions, some really nifty chord-based melodies, harmonies with woodwinds and pianos. There's a lot of things going on here that we'll break down when we get into songs.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what were the themes and elements that caught your attention?
So, jazz guitar for me, I feel like it's so very removed from rock and pop guitar that I'm more familiar with. And as a hack guitar player, I find it incredibly impressive because it makes sense to me, except that it makes no sense to me. Like I don't know what's going on all the time. This isn't really my corner of jazz music. I really like more like fusiony, progressive, rocky jazz because it's easier for me to wrap my rock and pop brain around because the guitar sort of fits into that more. But like, you can hear so much of his playing. You can hear what the roots of rock and roll would become with guitar. Like it's basically, this is from the era before really people had wrapped their head around distortion. Like this is about the same time Rocket 88 happened where, somebody dropped an amp and cracked the speaker and made gritty sounds. So like you're hearing the roots of a lot of music that followed it. But again, like for me, it's a little bit foreign, I guess, in the same way that cause I can't even me being a terrible instrumentalist, I can usually tell what a guitar is doing. And with jazz guitar, it's like a different style than I really know how to wrap my head around. But it's interesting to listen to. And it's very like smoky jazz club jazz is the way I would describe it. It's very straightforward. There's no real like nothing's really that crazy, but it's kind of impressive in how clean and sort of exact it is.
Not as heroin-y.
Yeah, there's no having this thing of codeine liquid on top of your piano, and every now and then you just sort of lean your elbow and bang onto it.
Yes.
Like your name's Thelonious.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's very like jazz played correctly, I think would be the way I'd describe it. Like cleanly, perfectly. Not that it's without feeling, but like just done really, really well without a whole lot of slop and crazy that happened in jazz later in time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely interesting take. Drew, what would be the themes and elements that caught your attention?
Well, as Patrick sort of alluded to, jazz is something that's very complex from the start, just by its nature usually, especially when you get into instrumental jazz. There's a lot of depth to it. It's very, I heard it, I believe, I forget who described it, but it's music for musicians, not music for people. There are plenty of people who aren't musicians that enjoy jazz, but for the most part, it's a bunch of musicians sitting around talking about how great the music is and what like depth there is. And
yeah, certain genres
that to me is cool.
Definitely.
It's people that listen to jazz, especially nowadays, are people who care a lot about music and a lot about like nuances and stuff like that. So there's a lot of depth and a lot of complexity to a lot of jazz. I say that in the beginning because that's most of jazz. What I like about this record is how it works within simplicity. There's a lot of depth to it and a lot of like cool moving parts, but it's never overwhelming. You get the stereotype of jazz being like freeform jazz or whatever, and this is not that.
No, this is not a horn going, but there's a bass guitar going doom ba doom 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 ba doom doom through the whole thing. It's
kind of like
it's
books
bullshit
aren't-
free jazz.
Right.
no,
So-
they're playing old songs.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
kind of like how
This
comic
is-
books
this
aren't
is
necessarily kicks
fun
and
jazz.
calls.
Yeah. It's the fun side, I think. And that to me is cool. There's one song it'll be like a simple drum beat, simple bass lick, and a lot of crazy guitar. And the next song it'll be like, oh, this song is this muted trumpet will be playing off of this guitar and it'll bounce back and forth, but it won't be overwhelming. And that's, I think, is something that is a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
Plus, again, to Patrick's point, this music is played so cleanly and so well. This is a time where it wasn't overdub after overdub after overdub, and to get this type of precision is awesome. He's a studio musician. He's a studio guitar player. If you are a studio musician, you were brought in because you can play a part. You can play the part exactly perfectly well in the least amount of time possible because you are paid to save them money so they don't have to pay for extra hours of studio time trying to get it right with somebody else. That's why you are there.
Physical
Like
tape.
Yes.
Exactly. It is you're paying for this musician because he can come in and he can nail it. And Barney Kessel worked as a studio musician for some time. And that's just awesome. The guitar licks were just clean and emblematic of that background. They were just very, very well put. There's this groove to the whole thing that develops that sounds effortless, and it's awesome. There's a couple of different hints here and there, and I'll get into it in a bit. But the drum and bass, for the most part, just fell to the background as rhythm sections in this type of music sometimes do when it's very guitar and horn oriented jazz. But they worked. And as a bass player, I know sometimes you just gotta let the other guys work.
Yeah.
It's a very danceable, fun record. To me, my thought was, I wish there was restaurants around here in Ohio that had like house bands that were playing this type of music, because I would go as much as I could possibly afford.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that like is at once fun and groovy and danceable, but also at times relaxing and just super chill. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like those. It has those in multiple things because it does jump around genres. Like it swings and it doesn't swing. It swings and then it does blues. Then it does, like you can look at it just in the title tracks. There's swing. There's blues. There's rag. There's ragtime. It jumps around with different actual jazz genres. It shows you like a little bit of diversity, which is cool. And you can see it in the different songs. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Pretty. I mean, there's a ton of things that you can pick apart on anything because it's a genre that doesn't get talked a lot about with people my age. I mean, it harkens back to like some of the things that made me enjoy old Looney Tunes episodes when they would play the current variety of popular music. And one of the songs that really gave me that like old Tex Avery or a nice sweet Bugs Bunny cartoon was Wall Street. The interplay between the woodwind and the guitar voice, which sort of hang out in the same like range, like the guitar player and woodwinds you can play the same range of frequencies, and when they're going together harmonizing or just going note for note together dead on is great. But then you get some like hot trumpet over the top of it, the bass line. Like I didn't look up how the production of this went. I don't know. I doubt that this was a multi-track record. I'm pretty sure they just recorded this in a room. Just the way that it was played by other musicians. I think this was a creaky old wooden floored room that they recorded out of, but I'm not sure. But that definitely gives you that feel. There's other songs on here. There's the favorite version of a song that I sang in my third grade program. The song Indiana or Back Home Again In. It has everything that I love about a jazz standard. This is like a song that is like a folk song almost. And it got turned into a really rousing jazz standard by many people, but this is by far one of my favorite. Everybody in the band had a chance to do what they do. There's a very great round robin type of toe tapper, as I would say. And I like the 12th Street Rag. It's a great display of musicianship. The guitar work is great. It's almost tripping over itself with some licks. There's some neat sweep picking, and along with that, the band hits on every beat. It's a really good way to close out a very hodgepodge of an album. There's fantastic piano work, even though there's not much of it. They're for having as many instruments and good musicians, they all hit and then they don't hit at all the right times.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I really, really dug Happy Feeling. It's really driven by a super muted trumpet sound. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, I used to be a trumpet player, and I played a little tiny bit of jazz trumpet poorly. And so it always made it, hearing it done well makes me wonder, well, what if I stuck with it? Maybe I could have done things like this. Probably not. But it's also it's a really happy song. It's called Happy Feeling, but like, it's really happy and peppy and fun, and not, music should be fun sometimes. I like fun music as much as I like sad, miserable emo kid music. And then Wall Street, which I felt like really good jazz. If you've got, especially if you're like this and you have, 4 or 5 really, really talented musicians in the group, having a song like this where you kind of pass the baton between instruments, the horns get a bit, the guitar gets a bit, the piano gets a bit, and they kind of pass it back and forth throughout the song. You really get to hear them play together and also play on their own, and it really showcases just how ridiculously talented these people are. And then roll back and do the Record Breakers thing. Begin the Blues is just nice, and jazz guitar and jazz piano together, like in this era of it, is a really, really great sound, because I think before distortion really became a thing, guitar often sounded like a weird piano. It was used very similarly, lots and lots of, but like playing a piano with a single hand, single note sort of thing. And it really, really works out where you're having the two play together in a really interesting way.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what will be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I'm going to do the Record Breakers thing in the correct order. Begin the Blues begins with a little bit of everything, including the blues, oddly enough, as the name might imply. Great controlled guitar work. The sort of pick, the staccato to it was really cool. Great, just fun rhythm to it. Like I said, starts out with a dancey sort of thing, which I think is really fun. Molten Swing. There are songs that make me wish I would have kept track of where my horn is. And this is one of them. Just that muted trumpet and the smooth piano, just the juxtaposed sounds in jazz are sometimes some of my favorites, and that's why I love Molten Swing. Also made me kind of wish that ska used more muted trumpet, because I think it's just a neat sound to play off of. I know usually ska is more boisterous, but the muted trumpet adds, I think, something kind of fun. And then going back to blues, the bluesier side of this record, contemporary blues, the bass beginning, like, bounce back and forth sort of play, I think is great. And then it goes into like a just really solid, fun walking bass line to me. It's not outlandish, it's not super out there, but it's something as a bass player when like there's a solid walking bass line that's sort of not pushed to the forefront, but sort of pushed right behind the forefront. It makes me stand up and take notice. And as a bass player, I can definitely respect somebody who can rock the walk for sure. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of those really great sounds. Yeah, the horns just shine really well, and that guitar is just anything. But yeah, the horns more. Yeah, I agree. More muted trumpet in ska would be a really cool, fun. Like
It would be so fun. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be your streetlights and Less Than Jakes of the world. Like Todd Hembrook, if he's listening, which he is not, like Deals Gone Bad could use a muted trumpet.
I was gonna
Give
say
it a
that
shot.
would fit in Deals of like
It would
ska
fit Deals,
bands.
It would fit
Westbound
Westbound Train.
Yeah, Westbound Train could get away with it.
There was
Go-
a little back
Go
in
with
the
the plunger
specials,
mute.
but not
Maybe
like
go with the
enough.
plunger mute to start. It's kind of the wah wah thing, or straight. Avoid the cut mute. I think that will ruin it. Straight mute, I think, will get you what you want.
Yeah.
Metal straight mute, because fuck a cardboard one. Again.
What self-respecting musician uses?
Me, like I just remember everyone else in 6th grade band had cardboard ones, and I had this ancient metal one, and it sounded so good.
That was 6th grade.
I was gonna say you said you used cardboard, and I was going to
No,
say
I
said
have.
self-respecting
I owned a couple
You
of
don't
cardboard
self-respect.
ones, and then I just used my metal one instead. The only problem with the metal one is it was convertible from a straight mute to like a cupped straight mute, and the cup would fall off sometimes, which was really inconvenient.
Yeah.
Because it was like 40 years old, like my trumpet,
Yeah.
which was awesome. And it's still in my closet in my parents' house.
Nice. But yeah, that being said, Patrick, what would be? Let's bring it back around the horn for some conclusive thoughts. What would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
If you're the sort of person like me who listens to lots of different music, and I like sometimes I consider myself a student of music, and I want to hear everything, even if I don't like it all. This is like a thing you should try. You might not love it, and that's okay, but it's very foundational in a lot of what followed it. And if you're the sort of person who will bother to listen to it, you can hear little elements of stuff that came after. Jazz isn't the easiest genre for young people, and I'll be honest, it isn't always easy for me. But I feel like,
especially because it's not just one genre. There's so much to explore in such a history.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
jazz
like
is as wide as rock and roll. Like jazz is as wide as rock and roll, if not more so.
Actually, technically no, but yeah.
But in terms of scope, it goes everywhere.
Technically,
This
rock and roll is actually a limited genre, but that's neither here nor there.
You know what I mean? Jazz as opposed to all rock related genres.
Yeah.
They're similar in size and scope.
Yeah.
But this is what I assume is on most lists as a classic jazz record, like something that if you want to hear what was going on in the 1950s, this is really, really well recorded. It's exceptionally well executed. It is not. It's reasonably approachable if you're okay with instrumental music. You'll tap your toe. You'll do the jazz snappy finger thing. And if you close your eyes, you do feel like you're in a jazz club. Like everything's in black and white. It's smoky and it sounds awesome.
Drew, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
This is not something I would ever suggest to everyone, but I would suggest everyone give it a taste. But that's true of most jazz, whether it's crazy fusion stuff from Jocko or whether it's swingy crooner stuff. Like, it's something I'm a fan of. I'm always going to be a fan of chilling out and just like, even if I don't know the artist's name or if I don't follow which song comes from where, I'm always willing to like kick back and listen to a little jazz. This is a great study in it. There is really great, like a lot of when you get this sort of era in music, what I always tend to find is it's either recorded and kept in great shape or not so much. We'll just leave it at that. And this, I think, was this style of music and Barney Kessel in general was kept in obviously very high regard. He'd been making music up until he passed, and it's just solid. Like, it's something that you need to hear to see if you'd like it. If you don't like it, sure. But I think there's something there for most everybody. Even my father, who hates jazz, I'm pretty sure he could find some stuff to dig on in this. So it's something that, while, as I said in the open, jazz is not very approachable by a lot of people, I think this can be. So
Yeah, I mean it's a record to listen to. There's a reason why, other than the fact that I love dumb bits. There's a reason why I did the dumb bit at the beginning with the Jazz and Popular Music 101, because this is a great cross section of really good samples of several different genres, several different sounds within the umbrella that is jazz. It gives you a lot of really good exploration and a lot of really good feels. Both stuff that is meant for you to sit down and listen to on your headphones, and stuff that you can get up and tap your toes to. Of different. This is before it got. Well, I don't know if before. I don't remember. Like, was this before it got heroin-y?
No. The heroin was always around.
Well, yeah.
Nope.
But like,
It was.
The 60s was super heroin, like people
Super
dying
heroin.
and choking on their own vomit, kind of heroin jazz. Yeah,
This was before it got that.
This was contemporary.
Speaking of heroin users in jazz, there should be a time when I bring Jocko in, but that's neither here nor there.
Soft
I
Florida.
almost bought Thelonious, but I thought that would be a little too far out.
Get that South Florida connection, which is awesome. Jocko Pastorius.
God, fucking Jocko dying too soon, man.
Yeah. Well,
Fucking
tough, man.
God damn it, man.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true bass player. I mean, I love Jocko. Jocko's fantastic.
Like, I can't stand up for somebody who died because of drugs. Like, I can't. Like, it's not in me to do that, right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and defend drug use. Like, you done fucked yourself up, kid. Like, you played you. Like, that's on your life. But like, fucking man, the selfish bassist in me is like, damn it, we could have had so much cool shit.
The mind of an extremely creative individual plus addiction
Plus
can
bipolar.
be crazy.
Yeah.
Addiction is a motherfucker.
We were lucky to get clapped and out of cocaine.
Yeah.
Where I can't.
You're never
we
not
can't
an
have
addict.
everybody, I guess.
You never stop being an addict. You just stop
You
giving
just-
in. Which is hard. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about Barney Kessel. We're talking about a wonderful, wonderful guitarist.
This week on Junkie Breakers.
Which doesn't count this week because Barney Kessel was a stand-up chap, as far as I know. But yeah, Brett.
I mean, are we wrong, Brett? Brett was. He was about
Correct.
to say we were wrong.
No, we don't know. Brett, what would be your?
He lived to be
thoughts?
80 years old, so I mean,
Yeah, it all worked out.
he never OD'd.
Yeah, never OD'd. He managed well. No, we don't know him. Brett, go ahead and say what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album.
Well, I mean, this is not indicative of the entire genre of jazz. This is, about 10 years before the last jazz album I brought. It's got some things to it that are of the time. It's very post-war jazz. There's still a room full of dudes making noise. It's past the band leader era of the 40s. It's the band is not big. It's got just enough instruments to fill the sound, and you can get a choice few musicians to get along with each other long enough to make an album. This is definitely just a scattershot
Which is basically 2 sessions. It's like,
yeah. This is a scattershot of musicians who worked for a living. These guys were, this was at a time when this was pop music. This was you had classical music and you had popular music, and this was popular music. This along with other music genres that were coming up, and this is white man jazz. Let's not forget. This is
Blue Eyed Soul.
Yeah. Let's talk about that sometime later. But no, this is definitely something that you don't have to be into. Most people don't get jazz because they didn't listen to it ever, and they've just listened to things that are derivative of. It really shows that you can take a blues song and put it in a suit and make it a jazz song. Just play some octave slides and throw a woodwind of some kind in there. That's not playing minor pentatonic. There's some fun things going on here, but it's not the be all end all. This is just a slice of a kind of a style that a guy played at a time in his life. So if you want to see more, get on YouTube, look up Barney Kessel's videos when he was a grumpy old cuss playing with other grumpy old cusses. He does one of the best versions of Chic of Araby I've ever heard. There was some
Spock's theme. According to Wikipedia. On the bass.
There are some things that when musicians pivot, they pivot. Television specials from the 70s that make me smile. Look at the clothes they were wearing. That's entertainment enough. But yeah, you don't have to like it, but you ought to at least be familiar with it. I mean, there's some things that I had to be familiar with because of this show. So take your medicine like me.
Take your medicine. I'd show up for class. Yeah. So those are our thoughts on Barney Kessel. Go and check it out. Now we get to our main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews. We will try to sum it all up in poetic form. I'll switch things up. I'll start with Drew. Drew, what is your haiku?
It don't mean a thing if you do not have that swing. Wait, got the wrong guy.
Also, there's the other half of the album.
Right.
Exactly.
But that was the funny joke I could make, and I made it. So.
Joke.
Funny joke.
I'm gonna do mine. Sit on down for a. Oh wait. Sit on down for a little lesson in good jazz. It makes you feel good.
Good pivot.
I forgot. I added a fora. I ended with a fora, and I started the other one with a fora. I've just realized that.
Hey, Black Sabbath can rhyme masses with masses. You can use
it's
the
all
same.
fair game now.
Yeah.
I had to look to quickly do things. All right, Patrick, what is your haiku?
Guitar-centric jazz, soundtrack of a smoky club. Swing delivers.
And last but not least, Brett, what is your haiku?
Some sweet, sweet music. Maybe not for everyone. The joy of the jazz.
And
Stockton.
of course, yes.
Karl Malone.
That concludes our thoughts on Barney Kessel's to swing or not to swing. You can decide.
That is the
your
question.
Answer. That is the question. You
Whether
can decide
tis
the
nobler
answer.
in the
Yeah. So you can decide on your answer on your own by listening to our Spotify playlist. Record Breaker is the home game. It will be there. You can follow along with us at home, listen to some tunes, see where our thoughts match and contrast, and do all that fun stuff. On that Spotify playlist will, of course, be our next week's album, provided by none other than Drew. Drew, what do you got for us next week?
Well, there was a man who played keyboards for a band that I loved when I was a kid, called the Get Up Kids. His name was James Dewey's. You might also have heard him in bands like Coalesce, bands like Newfound Glory. He's a touring piano player or touring keyboardist for My Chemical Romance. But we're not talking about any of those bands. His solo project, I think, is pretty interesting and deserves a little listen. It's very different if you know him from the Get Up Kids or if you've seen him play with My Chemical Romance. Very different. Yes. But it's a band I very much enjoy. It's Reggie in the Full Effect. He put it together as a side project to the Get Up Kids. And their album from 2005, Songs Not to Get Married to.
Mm-hmm. We look forward to talking about that next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And, of course, you can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is at HibbityBirdBird, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at XJuicerForX. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. If you want to email us, Rebellia.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube, Twitch. Subscribe to the things. Check out the things. Like, share, tweet. Do it all. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Doodaloo.
Chicka chicka.
Back home again in Indiana, to the place I used to love.